Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Week 8 Top 25 predictions. This week, there is a lot of good games, and I got to tell you guys, I got to give you a little bit of a warning. I'm starting off with a super controversial pick, but without saying too much, let's get straight into this thing. Like and subscribe, help me comment, always helps. Let's go. So, start it off. Boom. Oregon at Purdue, and I'm just going to say it. I got Purdue winning. Everybody knows about Purdue in their home stadium versus number 2, mainly Ohio State. But even Michigan State was a victim of this in like 2021, I think. But Purdue, they kind of owned the top 3, top 2 teams out of butt balls nowhere. The difference about this one and why people would disagree with me is Purdue's 1-5, and a lot of their games they have been killed. I mean, they were absolutely slaughtered by Notre Dame in their home stadium. They lost to Oregon State. They got beat up pretty good by Nebraska. They got killed on the road against Wisconsin. But like I said, if you watch my review video, probably most people probably have it because I'm going to post this within like an hour of my review video. But I said in my review video that they made a huge change at quarterback because whoever he is, Ryan Brown, has decided to absolutely turn on the afterburners. And they got rid of the original guy who was playing quarterback, the H card for Purdue, who was just playing like absolute shit. I'm sorry, Hudson Card, but he was playing like absolute trash. He was a senior, and they put in the freshman, Ryan Brown, to come in and take his spot, and they almost took down Illinois on the road, scoring more points than they have scored all season by plenty. I mean, the highest scoring game, excluding Indiana State, because that's a nobody school, the highest scoring game they've had this year in terms of like Power 5 games was against Oregon State. They put up 21. Other than that, it's been 7, 10, and 6, and then boom, on the road against Illinois, 49. There is a new spark of life in Purdue. It's also a Friday night, 5 p.m. night game in Purdue. And another reason why is Dillon Gabriel did this exact same thing last year, and it hit us all like a damn curveball. He won the big game against Oklahoma or against Texas when he was at Oklahoma. He won the big game, and Oklahoma was right up there in playoff contention, and they turned right around and they dropped 2 terrible games. I don't remember if it was right the game after or if it was a couple games after, but all I know is Dillon Gabriel's like Jalen Milroe. He can play the big game and perform, but when it comes down to the little guy, they always collapse. And he's gotten the it's gotten to his head. So I got it right here. They beat Texas, but they barely escaped their home field against UCF before they drop one on the road to Kansas, and then they dropped one at Oklahoma State. And that was pretty much what kept them out of contention for the rest of the year was those 2 losses. And they really probably should have lost to UCF, but they were in their home stadium. Dillon Gabriel has seemingly carried this mentality over to Oregon. I mean, he had a rough start to the year against teams that were not highly regarded. But when it came down to the Ohio State game, he performed, and he quite frankly stunned a lot of people, myself included. Even though I picked Oregon, I was surprised that they actually won. But now it's gotten to his head. He's right in the same spot where he was with Oklahoma last year. I would not be surprised if they drop this one against Purdue. It's going to be mistakes. It's going to be like 4th down conversions that they don't get, missed field goals. I think Purdue is going to take this one. That might be an insane take, but I think this is going to be a big one. I said at the start of the year, my Big Ten predictions, that I had a random Oregon loss in there. I said Oregon would lose to Purdue. And I was immediately going to change that once I had the hideous prediction with Notre Dame. But after seeing what has changed in their offense and putting up 49 points after having such a hideous offense, I think Purdue they're brewing. Their team has a lot of momentum right now and a lot of faith. And this has been a bookmark game on their schedule all season long. Purdue probably knew they weren't going to be anything special this year. You can't, even though you're supposed to have faith in yourself and your team, you can't deny, the projections and whatnot. And they were living up to it. They were 1-5 at this point. But then all of a sudden, you absolutely storm back with a new leader, and it's like, I think Purdue's got a really solid chance at winning this game. Oklahoma State at BYU. A game that I don't think has chance for upset is this one. BYU is still ranked under Iowa State, although I'm starting to get onto the Iowa State hype train, and I understand what people are chatting about. I don't understand why BYU's under teams like Tennessee and Notre Dame, who have much worse losses. I could understand Notre Dame a bit more, but Tennessee, they're barely escaping teams like Florida and Oklahoma. They lost to Arkansas on the road. I think Tennessee should be pretty lower, but time will tell. BYU sits at number 13, and I've got them absolutely killing Oklahoma State. I might be getting in over my head and falling into the Oklahoma State trap. Because after all, Oklahoma State started off last year terribly. They started off awful, and they ended up rallying and going to the Big 12 championship. But they did just take 3 back-to-back-to-back losses, with the worst one being against West Virginia. But, changes can always happen. They can do things differently. They can have a different approach going into this game. Who knows? Maybe it just takes a quarterback change, just like Purdue. So maybe Oklahoma State, but I really doubt it. BYU's defense is insanity, and it's in their home stadium. This was looking like it was going to be a really good game at the start of the year. Or not at the start of the year, but when both of these teams were ranked at the very least. But now it's just turned into a shitfest. I think BYU's got it pretty big. Miami at Louisville. I don't even know if this is a Miami background. I guess there's just no Miami football that isn't the Dolphins. But Miami and Louisville, with that being said, I kind of take the winner as their background picture. I've got Miami hitting the road against Louisville. Louisville has been kind of beating themselves down. The SMU game, more or less, not really. But the Notre Dame game, definitely Louisville should have won that game. They just kept on turning the ball over. When you turn it over like that and just make stupid mistakes, you patch those up and rematch against Notre Dame, you're winning that football game. But Miami has Cam Ward, and he is absolutely dialed in. He is just disciplined football player. They've also got a great run game at Damian Martinez and a super solid receiver Xavier Restrepo. He's very, very good. And yeah, I just think Miami's got it. Louisville was ranked. They had their momentum. They lost 2 in a row. They've lost their momentum. And it's also early. I would think differently if it was a night game at Louisville, but it's bright and early in the morning. So, yeah, I don't think there's upset here. And even if there is, I'm sure Cam Rising will turn around and find a way to pull a fourth quarter 21-point comeback to win the game. Virginia at Clemson. Virginia has lost my interest. If you've watched any of my videos, you know I've been pointing out Virginia and telling people to watch. But they ended up losing to Louisville by 4 points in a game they really needed to win. They had all game to, they were up 20-17. They had all fourth quarter to go ahead and try and put the game away, and they just couldn't do it. Mainly probably because Louisville's defense is all right. But also, they had more yards of offense. Both teams are even in turnovers. Both teams are even in penalty yards. It's just Virginia managed to lose the game. That's it. That's all there is to it. Louisville even had a missed field goal. So, yeah. And also at the 4th and 10 at the Louisville 39, you got to make a play there. You got to win. That was their opportunity. But Louisville, best Virginia. And now Virginia has to go play against a super hot Clemson team right now. Cade Klubnik is actually in the Heisman race right now. And I don't think there's anything stopping Clemson right now apart from that first game against Georgia. They only have to learn. And up until this Virginia Tech game that's coming up, Virginia Tech is pissed off right now. They were snubbed of a Hail Mary win against Miami. They dropped one to Rutgers, which they really probably shouldn't have dropped, but they turned the ball over 5 times to Rutgers 2. And Rutgers also just had 100 more yards of offense, and they still only won by 3 points. And Rutgers had 39 minutes of offense to Virginia Tech's 20. So, and then also they lose in overtime against Vanderbilt in a game they probably should have won. But I don't know. Their quarterback got hurt and stuff. And honestly, Vanderbilt kind of had the game, but if they would have just played out like how they're playing now, but also it's the start of the year. Virginia Tech is going to be pissed going into that game. They are so much better than a 3-loss team right now, and they will show Clemson how to play football. I mean, Clemson has been playing very good football, but they will sure as crap show them that they are no small fry. Sorry, Virginia. I've lost my hope and faith in you. If you won that Louisville one, I might be a little bit nicer, but I knew this one was going to be a loss pretty much the whole time. This was the one I was looking at on Virginia's schedule that was a stinker that kind of got in the way. And I think it's definitely going to shut things down at Virginia. Nebraska, Indiana, fun game. This game's a sellout. But the question is it a sellout of Indiana fans, or is it split between Nebraska and Indiana fans? Because Nebraska obviously has the best fan base of any college football team. They have the most loyal fan base, I guess I should say. And they're willing to travel to Indiana. I'm going to take Indiana right now because they have a lot of sold-out games and stuff coming up on this season. But Nebraska, they are proving to be a very defensive team from what it looks like. The reason I'm calling for 31 for them is because Indiana's defense seems to be the weak link for them. But their offense is definitely like a green light. Indiana has scored 40 or more points every single game except for the starting game this year. But they also allow a lot of points against teams like Northwestern and Maryland. That Northwestern game was close all the way till the fourth quarter as well. I do think Indiana in their home turf, though, will play some super solid offense. Their quarterback is definitely playing very good. Nebraska's got to patch some things up offensively, and I think they will do better in this game. But Nebraska's defense might just have a very hard time with Indiana this game offensively, and I think Indiana will best Nebraska, which would be a huge win for them. But if Nebraska goes on the road, that'd also be a huge win for them. Very interesting game right here because both of these teams aren't out of the Big 12 or the Big 10 yet. Keep on mixing up the Big 10 and the Big 12. They're not out of contention yet. Indiana sits at the top of the conference right now, tied with Oregon and Penn State. And Nebraska, looking in from the outside with Ohio State and Illinois, but they do have that loss to Illinois. And then all the way down underneath two football teams is Michigan, who's still in the top 25 for some reason. Then way down at the bottom of the conference, you got USC, which is the biggest pile of bullshit I've ever seen. Auburn at Missouri. I'm actually going to call for a close one here because these are two shit teams playing against each other. It's just one of them is yet to prove that they're shit. Missouri got embarrassed by Texas A&M on the road, and Brady Cook looks like shit. I'd honestly say arguably Auburn has a better defense than Texas A&M. Auburn has had a very good defense for the past couple of years, but they have just obviously had such a stupidly bad offense that can't seem to figure it out. Auburn should have won that game against Oklahoma, but they did everything in their power to sell it. I mean, they held Georgia to 31 points in Georgia's home stadium, and it was also like all the way until the fourth quarter until like Georgia really pulled away. They even kicked a field goal with a minute 50 left. So it was still like 13-28. I think Auburn's defense is definitely the shining spot. And Brady Cook has been performing like shit against good defenses. I think Brady Cook is going to make a lot of mistakes. But considering this team is still in the top 25, I do think that Missouri will be able to get over this game, considering it's in their home stadium, and they also have a relatively good defense, like sort of good. So I've got Missouri still taking this one. I can't put my faith in Auburn on the road like that. Sorry. East Carolina at Army. Isn't this background picture sick, dude? Google Images is clutching. East Carolina at Army. Army has been absolutely thrashing enemies. They've got like a rushing leader on their team right now. I think he's like a couple yards above Cam Scatterbo, but dude, Army is literally, they have scored 40. No, they didn't score 40 against Rice or against FAU, but still in absolute dominations in those games. Their defense has held teams to pretty much 14 or under every single game this year. Now, they haven't really played anybody special. Army will get their opportunity at Notre Dame and Navy will get their opportunity hosting Notre Dame. But I think Army's going to absolutely slaughter East Carolina. I might even be nice giving them 17. Alabama at Tennessee. Tennessee, you've lost my faith. You look at Tennessee right now. They looked good against NC State. NC State is shit. They looked dominant at Oklahoma. Oklahoma just got killed by Texas, and honestly, they just don't have an offense. They only have a good defense. Then Tennessee turned around and lost at Arkansas when Arkansas literally did everything they can to try and lose that game. Like, they should have won that game by a lot more. They missed at least like 17 points in that game. And then they barely snuck out a win in their home stadium against Florida. And Florida got killed by Miami, Texas A&M, and that's their only two losses other than this one. But still, Texas A&M went into Florida and did that. Tennessee should not even be ranked above Texas A&M. I think they don't play each other. That'd be such a cool game. Tennessee versus Texas A&M is like one of my favorite SEC matchups. But Alabama has been sneaking out win after win against the bottom teams, and I'll continue to say he's just like Dylan Gabriel. He plays bad in the shit game, and he plays great in the big game. He is going to be, I don't know if they're the favorites. They are by 3, but it's going to be a very difficult stadium, and they have been preparing for this one. He's going to enter his clutch factor and finally put Tennessee in the spot that they belong. Tennessee, some people were saying Tennessee is the best team in the nation, which is just blasphemy, like absolute blasphemy to me. But I've got Alabama winning this one. A couple years back with Hendon Hooker and Hyatt, I think his last name was. What happened to him, man? He was so good in college. He hasn't really – I haven't heard much of him in the NFL. But take me back to that team. I'm taking Tennessee here 1,000%, but that's just not the same team. You've got a freshman quarterback who's been struggling, showing flashes, but definitely struggling. And you've got Jalen Milroe, who has started to really get the college football experience. I think Alabama's taking this one. Notre Dame at Georgia Tech. I want to take Georgia Tech, but I feel like that's too easy. Notre Dame has been proving me wrong all year. So me picking Notre Dame, don't be surprised when Georgia Tech wins this game. I really just got to make a separate category for Notre Dame losses on my predictions this season. Dude, I was only wrong on like 17 predictions I made this year. And I swear, like every single one was like Notre Dame. Every single loss is like Notre Dame, I swear. But I got to take Notre Dame on the road against Georgia Tech. I feel like that's just too easy to pick Georgia Tech to win that game. Georgia Tech got beat up pretty good at Louisville. Obviously, Notre Dame beat Louisville. I don't think they should have beat Louisville, but they did. And either way, it was still going to be a close game. And Georgia Tech also lost by 3 at Syracuse in a game that was actually a much bigger domination. Georgia Tech since hasn't really played much competition outside of nobody. Those are the only 2 big games they've played. They've lost. A 3-point win against Florida State, a 10-point win against Duke, and a 7-point win against North Carolina. Those teams aren't too good. I think Notre Dame's defense is going to shut this team down. They might get some points considering home field. I don't know if it's a sellout or not. I should have looked it up. But Notre Dame has been proving me wrong all year, and instantly I looked at this to take Georgia Tech, but I second-guessed myself. So hopefully Notre Dame finally takes my side. Michigan at Illinois. This is going to be a really defensive matchup. Can you believe that? Michigan in a defensive matchup? Wow. Illinois just barely survived a shootout in their home stadium against Purdue. Obviously, they almost let that one slip by in a massive comeback. But I think Illinois is still a really good team. They are really solid in the big games. Their only loss is a 14-point loss to now number 3 Penn State. It was also at Penn State's home stadium, and Illinois also turned the ball over 3 times. They gave them as much as possible. It still held them to just 21 points. So I think Illinois definitely in the big games can lock in. They almost dropped one against Purdue, but I don't think that's too much of a worry. Michigan's favored by 3.5. That's blasphemy. I'm taking Illinois in a super defensive matchup, although you could kind of maybe expect a bit more points to be scored, although Michigan didn't score many points against Washington. They did score a couple points against USC and Minnesota, but they kind of struggled against Washington, and that was also a road game. This is as well as a road game. So Michigan might put up very little points. And I do kind of like the Illinois quarterback. He's very cool. He's very cool. He only has 1 interception on the year, which is a pretty key stat. He is pretty solid with not throwing interceptions. I think probably his only interception came against Penn State. I think Illinois got this one, and they will continue their reign. Charlotte at Navy. These pictures for Navy and Army are so freaking cool, man. Charlotte at Navy. Charlotte, I don't know much about him. Navy has been destroying every opponent. They even have a nice win against Memphis. Give me Navy by big. Texas A&M at Mississippi State. This could also be a trap game. I'm not going to lie. Now, I will say Texas A&M is definitely one of the best football teams in the country right now, but to be favored by 20 after Mississippi State just left Georgia with a loss, a 10-point loss, 31-41, Mississippi State made a much-needed quarterback change, and they did that to the quarterback. They did that to the quarterback going into the number 1 team in the country, and he actually didn't play too bad, at least for, it's on the road at number 1. And then against Georgia, I think he started to get a little bit better. Mississippi State literally made this game as close as possible. Like, Mississippi State, we know is not that good of a team, but they made it as close as possible. Thing about Mississippi State is their run game is absolute stinky balls, and Texas A&M has a pretty good pass defense, as well as it looks like their quarterback is cooking. So I want to say like this type of outcome with Mississippi State scoring sneaky points, but I wouldn't be surprised if Texas A&M kind of dominates here as well. I don't really think there's any room for a Mississippi State upset, though. LSU at Arkansas. I know I just was wrong picking Ole Miss over LSU, and I was a stupid dumbass, and I suck, and I'm the worst. But I was right last time I picked Arkansas. And Arkansas, quite frankly, I've said it once this video, should have put up so much more points against Tennessee. They were snubbed of a ranking spot. I think Tennessee was number 4 at the time. They were number 4 at the time when they lost to Arkansas. They were snubbed of a ranking spot, and they still are, even after the bye week. LSU's favored by 2.5, and I will say LSU did impress me a lot with the win against Ole Miss, but they were also in their home stadium. This game is a sellout. I don't know how many LSU fans are going to be there, but I know Arkansas can rock. And Taylor Green is a really good quarterback. I'm not sure if he's healthy. I think for the past couple games he's kind of been in and out, but they just got off of a bye week, so I'd assume he'd be healthy. Problem about Taylor Green is he's got 5 touchdowns on the year and 5 interceptions. That's over the air, though. I don't know how many running touchdowns he has because I do think he runs the ball quite a bit for his team. No, maybe not. Maybe he just didn't run it much against Tennessee and just got sacked more or something. I thought wait, let me check the Oklahoma State game. I know it's Oklahoma State, but Oklahoma State be doing this all the time. They start off really good and then they just collapse. Yeah, 18 carries, 61 yards. So he can run the ball quite a bit from what it looks like. He just didn't run the ball very well against Tennessee. LSU, on the other hand, their quarterback is very, very cool, to say the least. He's cool. Garrett Nussmeier or something. I don't know how to fucking say that. He's in the Heisman race right now. I think he's up a little bit too high. I mean, he didn't really perform that well against Ole Miss, let's be honest. He was 22 for 51, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. You look at the yards, the touchdowns, and the interceptions. I mean, obviously interceptions are a bad stat, but it's like, dude, you threw 51 passes. I'd expect you to throw for 3 football fields, but you didn't even complete half of your passes, bro. And bro was just slinging the rock. Jackson Dart arguably had a better game, just 50 yards shy of Garrett, and he completed more passes and threw the ball less by 9 passes. I mean, I just think, I don't know, it's you sling the rock that much, yeah, you're going to put up good stats. I just think they're giving him the Heisman because of last year and LSU's history with Heisman quarterbacks. But I do think Arkansas is going to win this one. I think Arkansas is going to find their flow in this one. Arkansas barely escaped Tennessee with a last-minute win and basically a failure of a play, a Will Howard situation, if you will, except he was the first to do it, and a freshman failure. He basically sold the game away, although I don't think Tennessee would have scored points anyways. Arkansas had a big opportunity. Like I said, they missed out on probably 17 points, which the final score was 19-14. Probably, I mean, you're missing out on a 36-14 game. If Arkansas patches up the mistakes, which I do think they will, don't be so aggressive and maybe just take your points when you get them. And don't miss field goals. I think Arkansas is going to win this game against LSU. If I bet against LSU and I'm wrong again, I don't know what I'll do. I'll probably cry. That's all. But I'm going to bet against LSU again. I do think LSU is a lot better than I gave them credit for, and I'm not doing this just because I want to prove you guys all wrong. I already had this game marked up for an Arkansas upset, and I'm sticking with it. Also, I mean, Arkansas is coming off of a bye week right now, which is really good timing. And LSU basically just had to pull one out of their ass against Ole Miss. It was a good matchup, but it was very close. Both teams walked out with their pants down. Arkansas is coming off of a bye week and a previous win against number 4 in the country. I think Arkansas's got a lot of momentum in this game, and they got lucky home field here. Georgia at Texas. Don't look at the background picture. I might be tricking you. Georgia at Texas. I am very interested in this game because Texas sits at number 1 right now, and people have a lot of faith in Texas for good reason. They're thrashing teams, and mainly their defense looks to be super solid. They have held every team this year to under 13 points, which, ironically, the highest scoring opponent was Mississippi State. Oklahoma and Michigan, 2 teams that were all the way up in the top 25. One of them is still in the top 25. Couldn't even put up more points than Mississippi State against Texas. That should say something about Michigan and Oklahoma, considering Mississippi State is 1-5. But Georgia at Texas, Georgia is being counted out right now and forgotten. Georgia's being counted out and forgotten. Remember the fat comeback they had to pull against Alabama for Alabama to just drop a 75-yard dime in a huge play by Ryan Williams, a legendary play. Georgia came climbing all the way back in that game, and if they don't start the first half like that with such a bad start, I think they're winning. I think they're winning this football game. They absolutely dialed in the entire pretty much the second half, they just dialed in, and it took a miracle for Ryan Williams or for Alabama to win. But I think Kirby Smart is still probably the best head coach in football. He is such a good speaker. He rallies his team. I think Georgia is taking the W on the road. And I'm going against my prediction at the start of the year. I said Texas would be the team to go undefeated, not Georgia. But I am switching my opinion around. I think Georgia is actually going to hit the road and take down Texas. I could be insane for saying this, but I could also die a legend. And I want to die a legend. Just kidding. That's a little too far. But I think Georgia, Kirby Smart, after the Alabama game, there's only one game marked up on his schedule, and it's a redemption game. And, dude, Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football right now. He's got 2 national championships to his name. He is very, very good at composing a football team and keeping a football team in line. Carson Beck is a good quarterback. They have a lot of weapons on the Georgia defense. And I mean, seriously, dude, Georgia got down 28-0 and only lost by 7 points. They got down 28-0, but early in the second quarter as well. And in the final score, Alabama only had 41. Georgia is still a good football team. And, I mean, if Alabama, I want to say Alabama's the best team in the country, but Georgia's a close second. And I'm just skeptical of Texas. Texas is yet to play anybody. I think Georgia is going to win on the road against Texas. Now, Texas defense could absolutely dial in and be that defense and shut Georgia down. If they do, Texas is a historically good football team. But I have Georgia winning this football game Very exciting game, though. Super excited for this one. UCF at Iowa State. I'm buying the Iowa State hype train, and UCF is a lot worse than we thought they were. So give me Iowa State by a lot, to say the least. Kansas State at West Virginia. I have been picking West Virginia a lot, and I've also picked against Kansas State a lot. The only game I really picked Kansas State was against Arizona. That was the only game. I picked against them against BYU, which was correct. I picked against them. I think I said Tulane would win, to be honest. I think I said Tulane would win in their home stadium. And I said Colorado would win in their home stadium. I pick against Kansas State. It hasn't been working. And I've been picking for West Virginia a lot. It hasn't been working. So, statistically speaking, I should change my ways. But I will call for a close game here. And I think this game is definitely going to tell where these two teams lie, the Wildcat versus Whataburger. I think these two teams are pretty close to the same level. But if this is the final score, I mean, if Kansas State hits the road and kills West Virginia, then we've got Kansas State's a higher team. But West Virginia and Kansas State both killed Oklahoma State. One of them was in their home stadium, however, and Kansas State seems to be way better in their home stadium than on the road. If West Virginia wins this game, or Kansas State, if it's close, these teams are probably lying in the middle of the Big 12 and not really near the top. If one of which destroys, one of which is at the top, one of which is lower. That's all. Stanford at SMU, the last game of the day. Stanford, sometimes they can go on the road and play well. Like, their only example is Syracuse, but I don't know. Stanford's completely lost my interest. This cool SMU background picture, though, they've got a bouncy house in the back, dude. Shit, if I could go to an SMU game and watch football and there was a damn bouncy house in the background, I'm fucking up that bouncy house, bro, and I'm watching football. That'd be sick, bro. That is so cool that they have like a slide back there. Hell yeah, brother. That's cool. But SMU is one of the best teams in the ACC. Their only loss is a 3-point loss to BYU, which look at what BYU is doing to teams right now. And it was also, BYU was on the road there, so it's kind of reasonable that it was a lot closer. If it was at BYU, probably could have been worse. But their only loss is to BYU, who's undefeated and ranked at number 13. SMU is going to win this game, and that's the last game of this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your predictions in the comments down below. A like and subscribe would help. Seriously, a like and subscribe would help. I say it as like an automated message, but it seriously would help if you made it this far and you're even hearing this. Like and subscribe would really help. A comment always helps. That's all from me. Adios.